Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I'm Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 86, Kavad II Shiroe.
Shiroe?
Where we find out where the pain comes from, and oh no, oh wait,
Oh,
what happened
no.
last time, oh dear.
Great, love that.
So, yeah, Ariel, strong memories from last episode, from the end of Khosrow II?
I don't know what to say. We flew so close to the sun.
Yeah.
And then fell and broke all
so
of our
far
bones.
and so deeply.
Where even are we? Like, how did we end up? Like, actually, I could really do with a recap because I don't remember what happened regarding the succession.
That is an extremely valid point, and it's going to be the point of discussion for the next 7 episodes.
Yep.
How many episodes do we have left? Yes.
Okay, so it's not just for this episode, it's just like bad. Like, just everyone wants to claim to the throne because it's not clear, or what?
Yeah. I will tell you, it took me a lot to figure out the order of episodes of these next 7 episodes, of like the order
so are
and
they
who counts
all,
and what do you mean.
Are they all at the same time?
Well, let me tell you, Sariel.
Okay.
Over the next 7 episodes, one of them will rule more than 5 years.
Cool.
That is all.
I was gonna ask, like, is this the last 5 years of the Empire and, like, this season?
We're getting close to it. We'll find out why it all happens, because, as you mentioned, the succession is the important bit we need to focus on, because who is legitimate, what happens, that's a big deal.
Cool.
And then, also, we are now in the year 6 of the Islamic calendar. I'm sure that has nothing to do with anything.
Uh-huh. I'm fine. I'm okay. All right, let's do this.
But yes, let's start with a recap of the previous episode, or previous 2 episodes. It was a 2-parter, so the episode on Khosrow Parviz, Khosrow the Victorious, Khosrow II.
Yeah. Debatable.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, that...
yeah.
He was pretty victorious for a bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Khosrow started his reign as he was sort of a puppet of his uncle's. He was then overthrown by Bahram Chobin, this powerful noble who took the throne, because legitimacy of the royal family is sort of breaking down now that they're trying to suppress the nobles. Then Khosrow came back with Roman support. He managed to win the civil war, become king of kings. Then he issued a coup against his own government. He fought his uncle in a civil war, almost lost that civil war. So again, the uncle who's a noble and not part of the royal family is now trying to take the throne, very much following Bahram Chobin's spirit. And after that, we had the whole thing with Khosrow invading the Roman Empire. Originally, it was meant to place Theodosius, this son of the Emperor Maurice, back on the throne. But then, for whatever reason, Khosrow tried to conquer all the empire, and he got really, really close. But then eventually, the Roman Emperor Heraclius managed to run circles around the Iranian armies, push them back at the siege of Constantinople, and eventually defeat them all at Nineveh. And then eventually, what happened at the end was that Shiroe, the son of Khosrow, overthrew his father, together with a bunch of nobles, and crowned himself as Kavad II. And in the end, Khosrow himself was killed together with a bunch of his sons. And well, today we get to find out how good a job Kavad II does. So, do you think he's going to do well, or do you think he's going to do poorly? Where do you think either is going to come from?
I don't know.
You don't seem optimistic.
I'm really trying to follow along, but I'm like, what do we do? The dread from the last episode is finally catching up to me again. I had blissfully forgotten where we had left off, and now I'm like, what are we gonna do?
I mean, first of all, we're still at war with the Romans, and they're surrounding Ctesiphon, so we need to deal with that quickly.
That's bad.
And then we'll figure everything else out.
Everything's bad. Who is, like, in charge-ish? Like, who's gonna fight the Romans?
Well, Kavad is supposedly in charge, and he is supported by nobles who want to make peace with the Romans. So,
cool.
Let's see what happens.
So what now? Do we make peace or do we fight? Can we even fight the Romans? I guess not.
Well, we have two armies. One in the far east, defending against the Turks, and one in the far west in Egypt, under a commander that isn't replying to our mail.
Great. So, yeah. Let's ask the Romans to kindly not obliterate us, and maybe they don't realize that we're in such a bad spot, and they don't give us a horrible, horrible deal. But I do not have high hopes.
Let's find out.
I think it'll be bad.
So let's start with who Kavad Shiroe is, because Kavad II was born with the name Shiroe as a son of Khosrow and a Byzantine woman called Maria.
Okay.
Now, this gives us an indication about his possible year of birth, because it's likely that the marriage happened in 590 when Khosrow fled to the Roman Empire and made a deal with Maurice. And given that we know the age of Shiroe's children from later on, it's likely he was born sometime in the 590s, so early in the new marriage, because, hey, you want to produce an heir.
Yep. That's the whole point, yeah.
Now, while we definitely know who Khosrow was, we've covered him thoroughly, Maria is a bit more ambiguous, because according to Iranian sources, she is the daughter of Emperor Maurice.
Yeah, okay.
Which means that Shiroe technically has claims on the Roman Empire and the Empire of Iran-Shah. The problem here is that none of the Roman sources mention Maurice having a daughter with this name. So, we're not sure. It's possible that maybe Maria did exist, but she was just a Roman noble, but not an actual full-on princess. So, who knows? It was a little bit unclear. But in any case, Shiroe is half Roman, is the point. And, well, growing up, he was in a slightly uncomfortable position in the court, because he saw that his stepmother, Shirin, the favorite wife of Khosrow, took plenty of power away from his mother Maria, who, according to some sources, was poisoned by Shirin. While Shiroe himself was placed under house arrest, with Shirin's son Mardan Shah being made the heir to the throne. So things aren't going very well for Shiroe. He is just being sidelined in the court and being broadly, if not ignored, at least kept away, kept out of sight. That's all we really know about his youth, but then we get all the way to the main action. As we saw last time, Khosrow's war raged on for decades until 627, when the Battle of Nineveh was lost and Heraclius began to march on Ctesiphon. So we remember that Khosrow was offered peace by Heraclius in person, but it seems like he refused these offers probably because, if you go to war for 25 years and you just accept, let's just pretend nothing happened, that's not a good look. You will get murdered soon after, so your only choice is to find a magical victory and hope that some miracle will save you. But this means that there is now a coalition of nobles in the court which think that, okay, Khosrow's never going to make peace. The only way we can make peace is if we get rid of him. So they look around for somebody who's going to help their side, and they find that Shiroe, he's been sidelined by the main court. He is not that friendly to Khosrow. He seems to dislike him, if his actions are anything to go by. And so they say, okay, you'll be our king, you'll head us, and then we can just make peace with the Romans and it'll be done. It's also possible that Shiroe may have been the oldest son of Khosrow's, so that gives him extra legitimacy points. And also the fact that he's half Roman probably would just help with the negotiations, or at least it looks nice if you're trying to make peace with the Romans to have your half Roman emperor come to them and discuss. The main conspirators were members of the Esbalbudan family, the one of the Khosrow's uncles Bendoy and Bestam, and the Bagratuni family, which held great influence in Armenia. So that's nice. We have a bunch of nobles. And as we saw last time, the nobles sent off messengers to Heraclius saying, hey, listen, hold off on the attack. We're planning a coup. If you just leave us space to operate, we'll just do it and get back to you with a peace offer. Good.
We're planning a thing. Just trust us. Don't...
Yeah, it'll be fine. Yep. Don't worry. So yeah, as we saw last time, in the night of the 24th of February 628, Khosrow II was imprisoned, and Shiroe was crowned as Kavad II the next day. Which is, I think, an interesting choice of name, since Kavad was no friend to the nobility, and it would be a controversial name to take during a time of crisis, but
Yeah.
maybe he was the last capable king before the Khosrows that anybody could remember, and they thought, calling him Khosrow III is giving the wrong message, so who was the last good king? Hormizd was terrible, or not great at least. Kavad, yeah, does anybody remember Kavad? It was 100 years ago. Yeah, this'll do. What do you think Kavad II's first role as King of Kings was?
Weren't we overseeing a peace with the Romans?
Well, first of all, he wants to secure the succession.
Well, yeah, of course.
So what he does is he cuts off the hands and feet of 17 or 18 of his brothers and half-brothers.
Yay.
This was done in theory to spare their lives,
Yeah.
but then we're told that the nobles said, this is too good for them, we can't take any chances, kill them all.
No!
And so Kavad said, alright, fair enough, kill them all.
Oh my god.
And in particular, the supposed heir Mardin Shah, which had replaced him, was killed right in front of Khosrow, his father.
No, yeah, true. I remember.
Remember the good times.
Oh my god. It was so unnecessary.
Yeah. A few days later, on the 28th, Khosrow himself was executed by being shot full of arrows to ensure that there would be no threats to Kavad's power, since all remaining Sassanids were either children or women, so ineligible for the throne. Hooray. Crisis averted, I only had to kill 20 of my close relatives.
Yep. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's good. Now, Cyril, not to spoil anything, but can you see any downsides to this technique?
Yeah, that you're gonna need an heir.
Correct.
We've seen this happen before.
Yes, but don't worry, Sarah. Kavad has an 8-year-old son. It will be fine.
Will it? Will it now?
It will be fine.
Mm.
I'm sure he'll grow up to adulthood and be a
sure.
strong and powerful king and save the empire.
Yeah. It would be so funny if you're pulling my leg and like actually we have another like 2-part episode in 2 episodes and it's just like, whoa.
You don't know. It might be. We'll find out. But yeah, in response to the murders of the family, we're told that Kavad's sister Boran and Azarmidocht, who you'll want to remember for the future, harshly criticized him by saying, "Greed for royal power, which is still not yet firmly established, has driven you to kill your father and all your brothers, and you have committed acts of dishonor." To which apparently Kavad reacted by weeping and tearing the crown off of his head.
Yeah.
But, probably my dude knew what was going on. Like, either he is fully a puppet of the nobles, and we'll see if that's the case, or he is just, come on, man. You knew what you were doing in killing most of your family. You don't get to cry about it now.
Yep.
So the accusations of the nobles causing the murder might be a deception, or it might not, because some of our sources have Kavad mostly along for the ride during the conspiracy. He's not like an active participant. So maybe he was just a useful figurehead with powerful backers and they control the empire, but who knows? It's a bit of a mystery. From the Shahnameh, Ferdowsi tells us that Kavad was, and I quote, "a coward and untried in the world's ways, acting like a slave in their hands."
Yeah, so
in fear of
basically
disobeying
puppet
order
to
of
the nobles. Right. I see.
That's the angle we're getting. Because, to be fair, if the nobles can overthrow Khosrow, the great king who had conquered the world, what chance does this inexperienced nobody of a son have?
Yep.
According to Al-Tabari, again regarding the murders, the nobles told Kavad, "It is not fitting that we should have 2 kings. Either you kill Khosrow and we will be your faithful and obedient servants, or we shall depose you and give our obedience to him, just as we always did before you secured the royal power." However, as a contrast to this, there are a lot of traditions that indicate Kavad is a despotic ruler in full control. But these are general either external sources or sources based on royal records, so they might either lack some information or be presenting Kavad in a more positive light than he actually was, as, oh no, look, he's totally a strong king, trust us. The royal records, we say that he's fine. So okay, Kavad has killed most people. How does the succession go?
Badly.
It doesn't look like people were enthusiastic about his accession. Because we need to remember the general of the West, Sharbaraz, who had either rebelled against or ignored Khosrow's requests for help at the end of his reign. He didn't really acknowledge Kavad as king, but just waited silently for what was going to happen. He's still not replying to messages. He's just staring and waiting what happens. Because we'll have to remember that he was a relative of Bahram Chobin, and a traditional enemy of the Ispabadan family that now held the strings of Kavad. So he's not too favorable to the new king, and hey, since we're doing this thing now that non-Sassanids can be kings, maybe I can. Maybe I, in charge of the last army in the West, could be king. Who knows? But yeah, as I mentioned, there was also the army in the east of the empire guarding the border against the Turks, and they were under the control of the Suren family, which also kind of just waited to see what this Kavad was made of, if he was going to be good at all, and, if something goes wrong, they just have to march on Ctesiphon and do something new. As for the nobility in Ctesiphon, we're not sure if they were all behind Kavad, or just his party was simply the first one to have their coup succeed, and maybe there were 16 other coups going on with different brothers, and this is the only one that actually worked out, because they got it first. But it does seem that Kavad was unpopular enough that everybody thought, let's just wait and see what happens. We might just need a backup coup. So we'll see. But despite these issues, it looks like Kavad was at least accepted across the non-army portions of the empire, since we find his coins kind of all over. And in them, he makes sure to remove all of his father's innovations in coinage and return to an older style of crown, similar to Hormizd IV or Khosrow I, to tell the empire clearly, listen, I'm not my father, things are going to be back to normal, we'll just go back to our normal lives, we're not going to conquer the world or anything, we're not going to lose everything, everything's going to go back to the good old days, it will be fine, just stay calm, please. And to make himself liked among the people and nobility, he released all the political prisoners that Khosrow had taken, and he cancelled Khosrow's new taxes. So he's trying to solve everything, and everything will be fine. But one of the things he also got up to at the start of his reign was not cool. Because the murders were fine so far. Because, much like his father, Kavad was interested in his stepmother Shirin and tried to seduce her.
Why do we keep...
Because we have nothing more important to do right now.
It's not like there's an empire that is going to fall.
No, Serial.
It's called escapism.
Yes. Just trying to take care of everything. It would be cool.
Okay, tell me about it.
So, he proceeds to be the absolute worst by summoning Shirin to court and claiming that she was a witch who had brought about Khosrow's downfall with her sorcery.
How to flirt with people. Just accuse them of being the cause of the empire falling. Call them a witch and a corrupt woman.
Yes, because nagging always
so
works.
Far, that's what we've done.
Shirin replied to him that he should be ashamed of saying this because the only thing she'd done is bring joy to Khosrow when he was alive. So
exactly.
What are you talking about? I was his favorite wife for a reason. What are we doing? But then Kavad forced her to come to court the next day and demanded she marry him.
Makes perfect sense.
And Shirin replied, why would you marry me if I'm an evil witch?
Yep.
And he said, I was kidding. Why do you have to take it so seriously? It was just a joke.
God. I do not understand. I do not understand what is going on in this man's head.
Shirin then replied that the only magic she possessed was her modesty and wealth, and that she gave Khosrow fine sons, and that she was beautiful. That's the only magic she has.
Yep.
I'm not a witch. But then she said, okay, you know what? Fine. If it's that important to you, I'll marry you. It'll be okay. If you're that insistent, you're the king now, I'll marry you.
Yeah, you don't, I guess you can't really say no to the king.
Yes. But I have two conditions.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, is that Kavad should abandon his claims to all of her lands and riches, which she instead gave away to the poor, the fire temples, and used the money to free all her slaves.
Excellent. Amazing.
Next, she asked to open Khosrow's tomb and see him one last time before she was married to Kavad.
That's either very, romantic, or Khosrow has something on his person that she wants. And I love both options.
Both options are great, yes.
I love her. Clearly, women, once again, showing that they have the right priorities in this show.
She is great.
Whether
she
it's
is great. I love her.
helping the people and actually caring about those who are suffering under this nonsense, or just pursuing your enemies and killing them dead in
brutal,
a contraption that
revenge.
you created for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way,
you can do both.
Noble pursuits.
Yeah, I supports women's rights and
And
women's
wrongs. Yes, exactly.
But yes, Shirin asks to open Khosrow's tomb, so she walks in, she tells Kavad she'll be right back, and then she'll marry him. And once in the tomb, she mourned the dead king and whispered in his ear words that they had told each other in life. She then lay down next to Khosrow, her king, her husband, her love, and then drank poison and died there.
Yeah, wow.
Because Kavad is marrying his stepmom, not
So
after
it
what
was
he's done.
extremely dramatic and romantic.
Yes, it's very Romeo and Juliet.
I love her. No,
She's great.
It's so much
She's
better
brilliant.
than Romeo and Juliet. Very sad to, escape a fate that she hated. But it was on her terms. That is,
she went out on her own terms, and she.
I admire
what she
her so
wanted,
much.
at least.
Can we do the episode
very
about
cool.
her? I don't care about.
Well, she is one of the options for extra episodes. Patreon.
Amazing.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Because there's a bunch of epic poems about the love story between her and Khosrow.
Of
They're
course,
one of those
course there are.
couples.
They
It's
invented
big
love.
Antony and Cleopatra style. Extreme, all-conquering
Incredible.
love, that sort of thing.
I love her.
But yeah. So Shirin is dead. Kavad now actually has to do his job.
Yeah.
Which is, the Romans are at the gates. Oh no.
Yeah, we haven't even talked to them about a peace or something.
Yeah. Because Heraclius has been made aware of the coup, and we need to conclude peace now. So Kavad sent a letter to Heraclius calling him his brother, in that way restoring the old order of the two empires being the two eyes of the world. And he also made sure to only speak of the protection of God, without using traditional Zoroastrian formulas, to ensure that the Roman narrative of this being a massive religious war wouldn't be kept up, and that there would be no sign of enmity against Christians. And according to one very fragmentary version of the letter we have, Heraclius called Kavad his son, sort of like Khosrow's relationship with Maurice. But we're not sure how legitimate this is, since, yes, Heraclius is winning, but he also wants peace, so there's no need to be so undiplomatic and say, you are beneath me. I'm your benevolent father, you are my obedient son. This, we don't know how likely this is, but it could be. We have a fragment there. And yeah, as part of this peace deal, Kavad asked to return to the traditional borders of the empires. What are the traditional borders? Because it can be many things.
Yeah.
It could be a return to the unfavorable treaty that Khosrow had concluded with Maurice, so the one where he gave up half of the Caucasus, which would be a bad deal. It could be the peace between Khosrow I and Justinian. Also, it could just be the peace between Shapur II and Jovian many years before that caused, 150 years of peace. So what counts as traditional borders? Because depending on which you choose, that shows a different balance of power going on. Because are we just fully surrendering and saying, yes, please take whatever, we just want peace? Or are we saying, okay, we have negotiating power, we still have two armies, with you land, but let's not go overboard. As I mentioned in the last episode, we ultimately don't have the detail of these borders because of the capital H history that is coming. So we'll have to find a way to deal with all of that and survive it. But the fact is that these peace negotiations were very quick. We didn't stay there for many months to negotiate peace. The only thing that happened is that everybody said, yeah, this is fair enough. So we can assume that compromises were made. They probably decided on a peace that somehow saved Sassanid honor by not fully returning to the Khosrow-Maurice borders. Because, again, if Kavad says, oh yeah, no, these last 25 years of war, let's just pretend it didn't happen. I'm sure all the countless people who died in pursuit of this war will be fine with this. But at the same time, this would probably give proper recompense to the Romans for the war and ensure that they can feel the victory they had and at least return to something favorable enough. So yeah, a reasonable outcome would be to return to the borders of Shapur II, which got 150 years of peace between the empires, with suitable adjustments in the Caucasus for the new situation, because Armenia isn't a thing anymore, Iberia isn't a thing anymore. We'll just split it traditionally and it'll be fine. Other terms of the peace were just the return of any hostages that were being kept by both sides, and that's it. We're done.
Easy.
Yeah. The only certain bit was that the Sassanid Empire would have to abandon Egypt, Syria, and Palestine. The greatest parts that were conquered. Which is very unpleasant.
But we just got Egypt back.
I know, Serial. I am very sad about this. It's very bad, but hey. We're there.
I am so tired. I am so tired.
Yes. So Kavad has concluded the peace. We need to abandon these territories. He sends a letter to the general of the West, Shah-Baraz, and says, withdraw from these lands, return to Mesopotamia. We don't own these lands anymore. Shah-Baraz does not reply, nor does he move. He stays put in Egypt and waits. So, why, is the question. Well, first of all, he represented one of the three most powerful noble families in the empire. One being the Espobodan and Ctesiphon, currently in control of Kavad, and the Suren in the east. And he hadn't been consulted about the peace treaty or about the new king, so why should he follow orders he had no say in making? You know, he could negotiate a better deal. Who does this Kavad think he is? And then also another more sentimental reason is that he has a full army and control of these regions, and he is the one that conquered them for Khosrow in the past decades of his life. And now he should just go home like nothing? Like, he still has an army. He still controls these lands. Shouldn't he at least fight for them? Should the Romans come and take them if they think they're so hard? We don't know. This behavior also casts some doubt on the idea that Shah-Baraz was in communications with Heraclius against Khosrow. Because there was the rumor that Shah-Baraz had just abandoned Khosrow and was just deciding to do his own thing and abandon Khosrow to his fate. But maybe it was just that Heraclius had offered Shah-Baraz a better deal than what Kavad had gotten, and so Shah-Baraz was just now waiting to collect and waiting to actually talk with Heraclius in person and to have that discussion. So yeah, no matter what the case may be, this means that there is a peace treaty that has been officially signed, but it wasn't properly implemented, so we'll see how that turns out. I'm sure nothing of note will come of somebody refusing to implement a peace treaty. Then, on the religious front, with the Monophysites no longer an issue, since we're giving up the West, Kavad allowed for the election of the head of the Church of the East, which had been kept vacant since 609, when it was stopped to allow more collaboration between the Christians in the Empire, but now we only have one group of Christians in the Empire, so cool, they can have their new head, it'll be fine. So, okay, Kavad has done some things. It's been okay, I guess. Like, he has concluded peace, nominally. I mean, one of his generals is rogue and isn't following the peace, but I guess the Romans could deal with that. Is that, should be fine. And, if the Romans fail, then cool, we still have the West. If the Romans succeed, well, cool, we don't have a potentially threatening usurper. That's nice. Either way, we win. But Sarah, we've had one horseman of the apocalypse. War, and it has been raging for a long time.
Yep.
The horseman of death has also not been limited. Which horseman of the apocalypse are we missing, Serial?
Well, we're missing two.
Yes.
To be clear, there's four, famously.
Yes.
Famine and plague.
Yes.
So, which sickness is going to invade the empire?
Very good. Very astute.
Because we haven't had sickness in a while. We've had famine, as in, depending who was taking whose food.
Yeah. Because, Sarah, the plague of Justinian, which was called the First Bubonic Plague Pandemic, with the second one being the one from the 1300s, which killed a third of Europe. This plague of Justinian, from about a century earlier, has been cycling in and out of peaks ever since then. Because what happens with most plagues before vaccines were invented is that essentially
you die.
They burn through the population, they kill everybody they can, and the survivors just grow up, have children. Then the children aren't immune anymore, so the plague comes through, kills all the children that they can, and then they grow up, and once a generation you get a new wave of plague just killing everybody that isn't naturally immune. So, not fun.
Yep. Horrifying, really.
Yes. So, there's a new cycle of plague. Hooray!
If only we had a way to, pass on the immunity to the generation that gets born after, that would be magical.
Yes, if only there was some sort of injection of a substance that could heal people.
Maybe a weakened version of a virus that gives your body a chance to fight it effectively, and then you don't have to go through the actual illness.
Yeah, that would be lovely, Sarah. I mean,
I wonder
if somebody will be able to invent something like that one day. That would be good. But no, suddenly across the empire, there are swelling of glands in the groin, neck, and armpits, resulting in big black buboes, accompanied by a high fever, which would rage until the victim either died or recovered. And if you recovered, you would often have memory loss or permanent disability. What is the mortality rate, you might be asking, Serial? Well, 30 to 90%, depending on the type of bubonic plague you catch. That means that, in the good case, 1 in 3 people die. That is problematic for an empire that has been recently ravaged by war and needs to recover.
Yeah, that's problematic for anybody, so let alone a population that has already been decimated.
Yeah.
Oh god, okay. Well, I can see how everything is going to and for once, it's not just due to the decisions of one man or a group of nobles. They're not helping, but
Yeah, you'll see in a bit. It didn't help at all, but you'll find out.
Yeah.
So the plague is spreading across the empire, and it killed a staggering amount of people. It killed 100,000 people in Ctesiphon alone, and in general, it killed, depending on estimates, either a third or half of the population of the empire. That is half the people dying of disease. That is not good. That is horrifying. And Serial, what happens when half the people who grow your food and harvest it and take care of it die?
Oh, that, the people who are left probably will die of famine because nobody's,
All the horsemen are now together.
Yep.
We have pestilence, famine, war, and death all together. The band is all here. It's time for the empire to die. Yeah, it's not good. So what do you think Kavad's reaction to the plague is?
Honestly, I would just off myself at this point. I would be like,
close
okay,
enough, Serial.
Whatever.
Close enough. Because
we're
this
done
plague,
here.
This version of the plague is called the Plague of Shiroe, after him.
Oh, fun.
Because he contracted the plague.
Yep.
And died either on the 15th of September or in early summer of 628. Although, to be fair, some more poetic versions say that Shirin poisoned him before she died, but plague sounds more like it.
Nah, he deserves the plague.
Yeah. And Ferdowsi sums up his reign like this. He says, "He reigned for a brief time. You can call him a king if you wish, or something worthless. But this is the treacherous world's way, and you should not look on it with trusting eyes." And he continues by saying, "He was born shamefully, and he died shamefully."
When someone says, you can call him a king, I guess, if you want.
If you really want to, I suppose, but no.
But I wouldn't recommend it.
Now, Sarah, who succeeds?
Yeah, there's that issue of, killing everybody,
Yeah, he's killed everybody who could be an heir. So what now? Well.
Yeah, you tell me. I know who's left.
Good news is that Kavad has a son called Ardashir.
Oh,
Ardashir
nice.
III, in fact. And Ardashir has all the might and experience of
he had
his
the
7
8-year-old.
years of age.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I'm sure he'll save the empire. It'll be fine. I'm sure that a 7-year-old will be able to pull back from the brink an empire ravaged by death, war, plague, and famine. This will be fine. Trust us, it's going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had one king before who was like really young and pulled through, but he was like 16 or something. Was it Antiochus?
Yeah, Antiochus. Also, Khosrow was like in his teens.
Yeah.
Khosrow II.
True.
And Shapur II was a fetus when he was made king. So
True, that was super
surely
unexpected.
it can work out. So we'll see how Ardashir III does. Do you think he's going to bring it back from the brink and be the two-parter that you were hoping for?
Well, no, because we have like 5 years to go, so. And you told me we have a few episodes to go through, which is not a good...
I didn't say we had 5 years to go. I said we'll have one king who will rule more than 5 years among the remaining ones.
Okay.
So it could be. I don't know.
So how many years do we have to go? Like 20?
Let me look at my spreadsheet. Yeah, 22.
Okay.
We'll see. So yeah, thoughts on Kavad II Shiroe?
Just whatever, man. Like... Usually I would say you tried, because like he was handed a difficult situation, but he didn't.
He wasn't handed a difficult situation. He took a difficult situation and made it more difficult.
Yeah. Just whatever. Yeah. Whatever, man.
Do not love the guy, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, so are you ready to rate him, Serial?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go. Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Dying of a plague that gets named after him. Yay! I'm sure that was a great consolation to him as buboes were sprouting.
Sure. Anything might be a consolation, you know. At that point, I feel like you're just like, well, I guess Justinian had his own
feverish delirium.
plague,
yeah, I mean, Justinian got better, though.
Yeah.
So he was probably more satisfied by it. But yeah, Kavad... I guess it's interesting that we have the plague and that we know what it was and that it was such an inconvenient moment, but
I don't know if things would have gone much better regardless. I don't know how to...
No, but if Kavad had reigned for 20 years and stabilized the empire and raised a capable son, then maybe that would have pulled a handbrake on the decline.
Yeah.
But,
If only.
Yes, exactly. There's a reason the podcast is ending, after all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how would you rate his death?
I mean, it's cool that, like you said, it's cool that we know it was the plague. So, I guess a 3? Also for the slight possibility that his stepmother
murdered
killed him.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And she would have done a good job to do so.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think 3 as well. I like your reasoning. So, yeah, with a 3 out of 3, we get a 3 out of 10 for final moments. Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? Not at all. He doesn't have any military experience. The only military experience he has is sending a message to Shah-Baraz in the west saying, hey, maybe abandon these areas and return home, and Shah-Baraz ignoring him.
Yep.
That was all his military experience.
Cool.
He can't even command an army via letter. So, yeah, I'd say a 0 here. I don't see anything. Yeah. I don't know if murdering his brothers and his father counts as battle hardness, but I wouldn't say so.
No. Those are just orders.
Yeah.
I doubt he went himself to kill them.
No, not really. So yeah, with a 0 and a 0, we get a 0 out of 20 for battle hardness. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? Well, he was part of a plot to overthrow his father, and it succeeded. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
The sources generally have him along for the ride, but that depends on how much agency you want to give him. Yeah. Like, do you think he was saying, oh no, I have daddy issues because my mother was exiled/murdered, and Khosrow will pay, and look, I'm going to kill his favorite son in front of him.
Yeah.
He deserves this. Or do you think the nobles were just looking around and said, you'll do. You have royal blood. Be king now. What are your thoughts? How much do you think he deserves for the scheminess?
I mean, a few points because of the actual coup
Yeah.
But other than that, he followed up with nothing. He truly gave us nothing.
No. Yeah.
So
I don't know if you want to give a little extra bit for the fact that they contacted Heraclius to say, hey, just maybe hold off, we're doing a coup. If you want to do that extra bit of treason.
I guess.
I think for me, that's bumped it up to like a 4.
Fair enough, yeah.
You agree with a 4 as well?
Yep. No,
Okay,
that's a good
nice.
point. Yeah.
So with a 4 and a 4, he gets an 8 out of 20 for scheminess. Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? Okay, first of all, just as heritage, it's interesting he is maybe the grandson of an Iranian king of kings and a Roman emperor. That could be interesting.
That's
pretty cool.
good mix.
That would be nice. You know, he didn't do anything with it.
No.
Maybe.
It went nowhere,
interesting.
but
Yeah. The
I
author
guess.
forgot about this plot point, but sure. Then, yeah, we have the fact that he has his father killed. He first has the hands and feet of his brothers cut off, and then he kills them.
Yeah.
And then he explicitly makes sure to have his father's favorite son killed in front of him.
Yeah, I hated that.
That's terrible.
Also because then he took over, and clearly he could not do his job.
No,
so
exactly.
why,
Yeah, it was just terrible.
why do all that? Ugh.
So that was not very good. I think that's pretty damn shocking. And then we have the whole thing with trying to seduce Shirin with like, oh, you're a witch because you caused all the downfall of the empire. But marry me.
What? Like, you call it seducing. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't.
What?
Yeah. Yes.
Man.
I definitely wouldn't recommend this as a dating technique.
No.
But,
Although I have to say I've seen worse, so.
I mean, sure, fair.
The insulting first, demanding second truly seems to be
Yeah,
a
it's just
thing
like,
for the ages.
what are you doing? You strange, horrible man.
Yes.
It's just like, and Shirin just goes out like the queen that she is because,
Yep.
She's great and she deserves all your respect. So, yeah, Kavad, not good. I think he's pretty shocking, I would say.
Some of his choices, yeah, for sure.
His choices are just like, what were you thinking? What? Also, just the general idea of seeing the empire's on fire. You know when a good time to become king is? Right now.
Yep.
I should probably take over at the best moment, which is when everything is on fire.
Truly.
So yeah, that's just...
Mm-hmm.
And he was generally insulted as worthless by a bunch of people afterwards because what he does to Khosrow, who is so much better than him, is terrible. And he's just a murderer and a terrible man.
Yeah.
I have no mercy for Kavad II.
Like, when you were asking, like, oh, what is he gonna do with the succession? Like, his own succession, like, his actual taking over the throne. Sure, the nobles, like, support him because they want him to, like, give them, more leniency or whatever. But I'm like, he can't just legitimize himself. Do people like him at all?
It doesn't look like many people liked him in general.
He can't just be like, oh, I am descendant of this and this, and like, I am the one true king. I feel like nobody's on his side.
I think his strategy was literally, if I'm the last candidate for the throne living, they have to take me.
Nobody else.
Yes, this is the sort of,
it doesn't matter if I'm the last choice because there
Earth.
won't be anybody else. Yeah.
Like, yes, kill everyone else, and okay, yes, sure, I guess I'll be king. So, yeah, he's just a horrible homunculus of a man.
God.
So, how much shock factor do you want to give him? I think he deserves a lot because you're terrible.
If anything, for the bold move of being like, I'm everyone's last choice, but I will be everyone's problem.
Exactly. It's just,
oh
God,
God,
why? I'm going quite high, honestly, because there's the mutilation of the brothers, the murders, the sadistic murder in front of his father, the trying to seduce his stepmother in the worst way possible.
And this is just like gossip having to do with his family, because then regarding the empire, he barely did.
He did nothing. He
just ignored things.
Just died of plague.
Yeah.
He just had a piece that probably wasn't terribly good, since everybody kind of refused to acknowledge it. And then, plague.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go super high because I'd rather give really, really high shock factor to people who like are shocking in a productive way. Like, not necessarily in a good way, but like,
But we gave
Alexander the Great
Alexander
was
a
really
bunch,
shocking.
yeah. And it
Yeah.
wasn't productive.
No, but it was just
You
like
know?
things kept happening.
Sure.
But I'll go with like a 7 or so.
I'm honestly going for an 8.
Wow.
I am honestly wondering if to go for a
Wow.
9.
Nah,
going
I'm
for an
staying
8
at a
'cause he
7
didn't do
then.
any
I'm
massive
bringing you
purges,
down.
but
You
yeah.
need to. Yeah. That's too much.
I think an 8 because he's just, gross. I hate him. So, yeah, with an 8 and a 7, he gets a 15 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron Shine. How good is he for the Empire in general and Iran in particular? I mean, he overthrew Khosrow and messed the succession up for everyone. He killed everybody in the line of succession, and now the throne is in the hands of a child. He concluded a peace treaty with Rome, which I guess, at this point it was kind of necessary, but nobody's listening to him. He's just sent a letter to the general of the West, and he's just said, nope, I'm not moving. Who are you? You're not my king.
Yeah.
So that's not good. The plague. Half the empire is dead now. And famine is coming because crops are rotting in the fields because there are corpses everywhere. This is not a good time. Like, I don't know if we can blame him for the plague, but... Because, okay, let's play devil's advocate. You could argue that he did the right thing by murdering all the other heirs, because what the Empire doesn't need now is a civil war between 10 different pretenders.
Sure.
So you can argue that that's fair enough. But also, you want to have a backup plan, right? Just like, keep one brother alive, It's just somebody just in case. You can keep a brother alive and send him far away to rule some tiny little province, and then it'll be fine.
I mean, we've run into this problem before, and I think they just expect to like have an heir quickly and then rule until that heir can take over. And so everything just be like their own family. But then you're literally like betting it all on 1 or 2 people that are gonna take a while to grow up.
Yeah, you're betting on the fact that you will survive and rule well for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
If you don't, everybody's screwed.
Yeah. Man.
So, yeah, he's not helping. And how much blame do you want to put on him for the plague? I mean, there was nothing he could have done. Very simply.
No,
that's
just
it's
a bad
pre-modern
circumstance
society.
that, like,
they don't have much they can do. Do you want to count it in the fact that the Empire is genuinely worse off? Or do you want to say, well, let's just discount that because...
I don't think we can count the plague as his fault because, that like it would have happened to any king. In fact, we have had this before.
Yeah.
As we do because, humanity.
Yeah, so for his sides, we have destabilizing the Empire with his coup. We have destabilizing the Empire with canceling the line of succession. And as a slight positive-ish, we have the fact that he made peace with the Romans, but we need to remember that not everybody's accepted this peace, so has he really made peace?
In his mind, yes.
Yeah, so I'm between a 2 and a 3. He hasn't caused the Empire to fall or anything, but he hasn't helped it. Honestly, I think a 2 is too harsh. I think a 2 is considering the plague as well. I think it's just like ruining the line of succession. He did make peace. Yes, he damaged the throne, but I think I might be going for a 3 despite myself. Because, the Empire is relatively stable.
Would have had been better if he hadn't done.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have to take some...
But you also need to consider, what if his son had been 20 years old and had succeeded
But he wasn't!
True.
Like, he made these decisions while his son was not...
True.
Like,
he knew that his son was 7, yes. True.
Yeah, that's not a thing that you find out on the day of the succession.
Yeah, like, it wasn't, finally, I've killed all my brothers. Now let me check about my heirs. Oh, my son is how old? What? No, fair,
I did not know this. No.
Yeah. 2. Fine, 2 it is. What are you doing?
Yep, same. I'm glad we agree.
Fair enough.
He's just horrible.
Yeah. So with a 2 and a 2, he gets a 4 out of 20 for Aaron Shine.
Like, horrible in a ridiculous way, you know? Like, not even like I hate his guts, because he's just a bad human being. It's also like, just bad decisions. Like, stupid, not thought through, and just doubling down and completely missing the important like, just, yeah.
Yeah, not very good. This makes him the worst king since Peroz I, who kind of invited the Hephthalites to the empire and caused it to basically almost fall.
Yeah, that feels correct.
Which, yeah, that tracks. But yeah, our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like? Let me get you his crown. Here you go. It's a simpler crown than Khosrow's, but still pretty elaborate. Okay, so Sarah has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and I'll describe it to you all. Yes, very well. We were discussing this before, so. What we have here is Kavad in his typical robe. He has a beard, long hair, as usual, as we've gotten used to the Sassanid kings having. And he has a nice crown, a big sphere on top, some half moons all round, and crenellations on the side. And he is simply lifting it off his head, saying, "Milady," as he is trying somehow to court his stepmother Shirin in the absolute worst way possible, because it's a weird, weird little man.
He just gave me really, really strong incel vibes, so that's
correct.
What we're going for.
So, yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. If any of you would like to see this image, you can go to the episode notes in the description, on our website in Sarah's portrait gallery, or on the Discord if you're a patron. Now let me show Sarah what he actually looked like. It's equally unimpressive as his personality.
Wow. He just keeps losing, man.
Yeah, damn. Here you go.
Oh, yeah.
It's a guy.
It's a coin.
Yep.
I like the decorations of the frame. What are they
That's
supposed
neat.
to be?
I don't know,
Stars,
honestly. I think it's meant to be stars with half moons, but I'm not positive on the iconography. It's been a thing since Tigranes the Great of Armenia,
like we've seen that before.
It's been around, but
it's a coin. Yeah. I don't know. Not much special about it. It's a stylized coin.
I do like how the poof on top of his head kind of looks like a flower. That is
nice.
That's neat. But yeah, I've seen better.
I'm gonna give it a 1.
I'm gonna give it a 2 because I like the poof.
Okay,
that's good.
Good, sounds fine.
Very well.
I was between 1 and 2, but I think a 1 and a 2 together makes sense.
Very good. So with a 1 and a 2, he gets a 0.8 out of 5 for Face of Faces. Our next category is lengthiness. How long do you think this man reigned?
I was gonna say a year. I don't think he had time for much. No, and you mentioned that like the only thing he had was his like 7 or 8-year-old son as a successor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the age that the son was also like by the end. I don't know if we were counting that at the beginning, so I'm gonna say less than a year.
Correct. He reigned for a full 6 months.
Wow.
From early 628 to middle to late 628.
I would say congrats, but you know what? No,
it's fine. We've had worse, It's not even impressive in how bad he is.
Yeah.
So half a year is 0.5 divided by 10 years, and it's 0.05 out of 5 for lengthiness.
Yep.
Which leads us to the final score, which is a grand total of 30.8 out of 100, making him the lowest since Jamasp a while ago. And so it's broadly an impressive score. In general terms, he is below Phraates III and above Bahram II. So,
okay.
Yeah. It's memorable. I'd remember him, but he's not the highest and the best.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Which leads us to the final question, which is to say, is he murderous enough? Is he chaotic enough? Is he bad at courting women enough to be a Shahanshah? Or is he just a Shahanah?
Nah, man, I want to stop talking about him.
I have like a 25% in my head that says he might be terrible enough that it's worth remembering, but
yeah,
I don't even think that's there. Yeah.
Nah.
It's just a vibe. I honestly don't think he deserves it. So, yeah, sorry, Kavad. Or not sorry.
No, you did this yourself.
You are a Shahana. You can go off into the desert and meet your grandfather, Hormuz IV. Tell him, things are so much worse now. You thought things were bad with Bahram Chobin. No. They get a lot worse. At least now half of the empire is dead. So we need to deal with that now. That'll be fun. Good luck, Ardashir III.
Like, stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Get some help. I feel like I say this in every episode, but...
Very much so. So yeah, that is the end of our episode. We hope you had fun, or an approximation of it, by listening to Kavad II Shiroe.
Yep.
And we hope you'll join us next time to see, will the baby do it? Will the small child succeed in restoring the empire to its former glory? And
I'd love that story.
We'll find out.
Something tells me that that's not the story we're going to get.
Hey, it might be. You won't know if you don't listen, so you probably should tune in.
Tune in. Find out with us. With me, I guess.
Yeah. In the meantime, if you'd like to support us, you can do so on our Patreon. And you can join our many lovely patrons, including our new patron, Jordan Melnick. So thank you for being a lovely patron. We are coming with the theme of Khosrow II. This is the Winter of Failure. So we've covered Antiochus VII trying to save the Seleucid Empire. We've just finished covering Demetrius II trying to save the Seleucid Empire. And at the end of the month, we will have Ardashir IV trying to save the Parthian Empire and failing. So join us. We have a bunch of backup episodes. They're cool. Would you like to hear more about Shirin? She's cool. Well, first of all, I think she deserves a VIP spot, so we'll put her in there. And also, if you want to hear her story, you can vote for her at a certain tier. It'll be cool. If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, that's fine as well, but we'd appreciate if you could leave a review on your podcast app of choice, just so you can tell other people that we exist and you enjoy us, or post about us on social media. Let other people know that we exist and that you think we're pretty cool. That's nice. We appreciate it. And yeah, in that case, without any further ado, we hope you have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.